with that, we're going to move forward. I want you guys to flip over your sheets, and I want you to look at this image right here. Smaller on your page. And this is our organized fish visual. And so don't look at both right now. I just want you to focus on that top half. If we were just looking at this top half of the organized fish image, how could we interpret this? What are some interpretations or thoughts?
Run!
All right, we gotta run. We're scared. Snack time. All right, love it.
The big one feeds on the little one.
Okay, so the big one is feeding off the little ones. All right.
There's some outliers that made it for the other side.
Okay, some people are surviving, right? They got past that big fish. Very few though, and they're little too. That's probably why they went. Anything else?
Different directions.
Different. So they're scattered.
Right.
All right.
Lack of organization.
There's a lack of organization, right? There's no strategy in this, right? That we can see. And who do we think this big fish is? The man. The man.
The state.
The state.
Could be a lot of.
It could be a lot of things. All right. So without thinking about this first image, think about the bottom half, right? What if we had to interpret this just standing on its own? How could we interpret this image?
Let's go.
Okay, we have let's go. Yes?
Basically, together we are just bigger than who we think is bigger than us.
So we can think about collective action, right? United we stand.
Divided we get eaten.
Divided we get eaten.
But then again, there's still that one leader that's just in the front. I feel
Where?
like it should just fit in a puzzle, like just go in the mouth of. You know, why is there always that one person in the front?
What are you
Somebody's
talking
gotta
about?
be
The
there.
big
Yeah,
fish.
I think
Oh, the
Man's
big
getting
fish.
eaten. No, the
Yeah.
little fish are
So we
coming
think that the
together
big
to eat.
fish might be
Yeah.
getting eaten, and your interpretation is a little bit different, right? What was your interpretation? But that's their interpretation. What's yours?
Like, why is there always that one guy, like that one thing in the front? Like,
Okay.
it look like he's leading the big fish.
So we have two different interpretations. The first interpretation is that this big fish, the man, the state, whoever it is getting eaten by these group, the collective action of these other smaller fish that have created their larger size, right? The other interpretation is that they're following this big fish.
Yeah.
Now, that's actually really important. So let's look at both these images together. How can we interpret these images together?
This, the darker fish over there is eating the other one.
Yeah, so that's what we said before, but how about both of them, when these two stand together, and we look at it as a whole image, how can we interpret this?
The power of organization.
Okay, so this is where the collective action comes into place. Now beforehand they were scattered and they had this one larger fish, right? And then what ends up happening is with their collective action they become more powerful and are able to get this bigger fish, whatever that big fish is. So in terms of interpretation, there's a few. The intention of why we show this is to get to this point of collective action creates power. But there's a lot of other things. And one is that actually this big fish is a community organizer who comes into a community and organizes them, right? That's one other alternative interpretation. The other one that I think is interesting, and I do think it's important in terms of that this is still the evil entity of whatever that is, right? Whether it's a man, whether it's a corporation, we can think about all like the Walmart campaigns, we think about big business, we talked about the 99% before, we talked about it could be government, could be police brutality, not necessarily police, but police brutality, right? Could be a lot of different things. But often what happens, and we can think about this in terms of not-for-profits, is even when we organize to have collective action, we replicate the same systems of oppression that we already know. And so we think that we're bigger and badder because we have collective action, but we are still replicating the same systems of oppression. And a lot of ways that we can think about it is, for example, the feminist movement had a lot of issues with race and racism where it refused to acknowledge the experiences of women of color, even while they were trying to do good work and did a lot of amazing work for the rights of women, they still have racism within that collective action, right? It's like, oh, it's easier for us to ignore that so we can try to have more collective and have power and make that type of change. But when of color, we're like, no. Because the way I experience this world is as a woman of color. It's not just as a woman. That's really important. And so when we're thinking about our own collective action, we also need to think about how we replicate those systems. What does it mean to accept grant money? How does that affect the work? Are we replicating the same systems of capitalism in some ways, even when our intentions are good? Any last responses to this? All right. So with that, we're going to move forward with our fish analogy. We made it gender neutral, but it says, give a person a fish, they will eat for a day. Teach a person to fish, and they will eat for the rest of their lives. All right, by raise of hands, who has heard this proverb before? Okay, that is every person in the room. All right, so this is a pretty common proverb. We hear it. How many people agree? Okay, so for the most part, almost everyone agrees, and there's one person who has like a little bit of a... All right, so what is the interpretation, before we get into why we may not have issues or, think about this differently, what is the interpretation of this? Go ahead.
Well, I think it assumes that people are able to, everyone has the same level of learning.
Oh, we're not there yet.
Oh, sorry.
I'm going to get back to you, all right?
Alrighty.
So if we were just going to interpret this, how would we interpret this on face value?
That if you give people the tools to empower themselves, then they are able to do so.
Okay. So if you give people the tools, they will be fine for the rest of their lives. We never have to worry about you again. So let's not keep on doing this charity thing. We're going to teach you how to fish. You are going to be self-sufficient. And that's the way we should do things, right? And for the most part, we can agree on that. It's a pretty forward statement. However, if we were looking at this from a social justice perspective, what is missing from the proverb? Boom. You.
Like I said, the fact that it assumes that everyone has the same capability or ability to learn.
So it assumes that people have the same capability to learn. Okay, very good. Anyone else?
I thought about, like, what if there's no fish in the ocean?
What if there's
to
no
eat?
fish in the
So,
ocean?
I mean, you can teach someone a specific tool, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there will be a consistent supply of resources, I guess, for them.
All right.
It assumes that everyone starts at the same place.
So it assumes everyone starts at the same place.
But what if you don't have access to the tools necessary to fish?
What if you don't have access to the tools? Anyone over here? Anyone over here? So all those answers are exactly right. If we were looking at this from a social justice perspective, there's a lot of things missing, such as, do you have access to the water? Is there a tax or a fee in using the water? Do you have a fishing pole? Do you need daycare for your children in order to travel to the river or wherever you get these fish? Is the water polluted? That's very real. Is the water itself polluted? Are you a vegan? And I say that very seriously because, I also think it's fun, but I say that there's something very serious about that because oftentimes when people are in need, how often do we tell them, you're not allowed to question what I give you? You need to take this and not have any questions or you won't be getting anything at all. You can starve, right? With no acknowledgement of who they are as a person or why and how they live their lives and why they make certain choices, right?
Not to interrupt, but on that same point, if anyone's interested or hasn't seen it, the Daily Show, Jon Stewart, it's a really funny thing about news coverage of the food program, and how they make that same point.
All right.
Well, they get salmon from downtown, from Union Square. So, no, I always thought that poor people should eat tuna from a can from an Alabama.
Right. So it's a really good example. And the people really talk like this. This is not like Jon Stewart, we may laugh about a little, but we can relate this to real life. Like, let's think about the welfare system. Let's think about how we talk about people who receive food stamps or welfare benefits. We talk about them as a country, maybe not people in this exact room, as a country as if they are trash, as if they are lazy and undeserving, and as if they are completely taking money out of your tax money and just buying TVs and sneakers with it, right?
Right, and that actually came after EBT started being accepted in farmers market.
Mm-hmm.
And basically there was a group of people saying, well, people that are on welfare shouldn't eat from Whole Foods, they shouldn't eat organic, they shouldn't get lobster, they don't deserve that, basically. That's basically what they were saying.
So there's two sides of that. So when farmers market started accepting EBT cards, which is the way food stamps are now given to people, it was saying, do poor people deserve to eat expensive places like Whole Foods? And then the other part of that is this policing of people who receive food stamps of you cannot get junk food, you only can get fruits and vegetables and these types of things that people consider healthy, right? And so there's this policing of, now we can have an argument about what's healthy and what's not, but the point is we predetermine for people, if you receive this money, this is the way you have to spend it. And we don't care about your culture, we don't care about why you make the choices you do, we don't care that we ourselves are not policed in the same way, because we get paid to do what we do. We have American rights, right? This is the way we talk about people on food stamps receiving benefits, and there's a lot, how often we talk about homeless people, we can go through every single category. And in terms of as a society, we talk about people like it's their crap, because we don't look at this from a social justice perspective of what may be missing that is beyond them learning how to fish. And it's also the assumption that you need to be taught, which has a lot of implications racially in this country, for example, that you are someone who is stupid, who needs to be taught by people who are captain saviors, right? Like they just come to the world and we want to swoop in and save you, and I assume that you need to learn in this type of way. And I don't need to change the way I'm doing this. I don't need to change and give up my power and privilege in order to make sure that everyone here is equal and has equal access to power. Because we're talking here about access to all these things.